specifically trained in negotiating techniques, and they're very complex, but ultimately, this is a business negotiation, and you want to treat it as such. And there are really two ways of negotiating, and this is grossly, simplified, but there is what we call positional bargaining. I'll take an example of you being in a souk in Marrakesh. You see a lovely rug, and you'll say, "Oh, I'll give you £20 for that rug." Now, the salesperson might say, "Are you crazy? This rug is worth 40." They'll say, "Okay, I'll give you 25." They'll say, "Okay, I'll give it to you for 35." And then you might walk away and they'll run after you. That kind of positional bargaining effectively comes down to splitting the difference. And what it is effectively a contest of will. Who's going to back down first? And you're both bluffing and you're both trying to convince the other. And at the end of the day, one of you is going to feel like they won. The one who finally said, okay, is going to be the one who feels like they've given in. And there really is only one option in terms of the proposal you're making. The problem with that kind of bargaining is that everybody ends up feeling kind of they haven't really got anything that works for them. Now, the much more useful and impactful way of negotiating is to look at interest-based negotiations. So now you're no longer looking at the price of that rug. You're trying to solve the problem together. So it may be that you want to pay £20 for that rug. But what is the logic behind that number? You've come up with £20. Where did that number come from? It may be that you've set yourself a budget of £100 for your shopping today. And actually, you also buy a liquid, and you also buy livers. And so actually, if you spend more than £20, you won't have enough to buy the others. And now you can start having a conversation with the salesperson. And it might be that they sell lamps, and actually they can give you a bundle price for both the rug and the lamp. Or they even sell maybe the slippers, and they can give you a whole bundle for those £100. But if you're able to express what is behind that position of £20, then you can work together to find a solution. You get to understand each other's interests. You come up with a variety of possibilities. I've mentioned just a few. And you can find an agreement that's mutually acceptable. So this approach is very much focused on making offers rather than threats and trying to solve the problem together. In the context of a divorce, I put an example at the bottom. It could be, I want to keep the car, you don't need one. The person doesn't know why you want to keep the car. It may be that it was your sister's car and you're really attached to it. Or it may be that actually you don't know how you're going to take the kids to school if you don't have a car. Or, well, if it's because you don't know how to take the kids to school, maybe you don't need that car. And there could be a discussion about you getting another one and how you're going to fund them. Or maybe the children change schools. There's a lot of other options that come up as soon as you focus on the interest and the need rather than on a position. So what that looks like in kind of a graphic form, kind of simplified form, is when you get into a deadlock is because each person is very much stuck on their position. I'll give you £20. No, I won't sell it for less than £40. And there really is no negotiation zone in that kind of context. Everybody is stuck on their position, and they can't really give in without losing face. If you are creating a negotiation zone, if you're coming to the table with a variety of options and expectations that go beyond a very specific outcome, you have that bubble in the middle, and you have a lot more options to make those bubbles overlap and to find solutions that are acceptable to everybody. The last thing that I wanted to touch upon is that it's not just about what you say, but it's also how you say it. The way you show up in that conversation is going to make a massive difference. Remember that you're here to understand the other person's interests and to express your own. So you want to listen to them. You're not there to convince them that you're right. You're not there to speak over them and to get your way. You want to actually hear what they're saying and understand what it is they're trying to achieve. So you don't interrupt, you look them in the eyes, and reflecting back is a really good way of validating that you've understood properly what they're trying to say. Don't hesitate to say things along the lines of, so if I understand correctly, what you're saying is this. And that's without judgment, right? You're simply holding up a mirror and making sure that what they said is what you understood. Another important bit, and especially when there's a lot of emotions, is to slow down. If everybody's getting upset, usually voices go up, speed of speaking goes up. If you slow it down, both with regards to your tone and the speed at which you're speaking, you're calming down the atmosphere. And what happens is that there's a psychological effect where the other person ends up mirroring you. And little by little, they're forced to kind of meet you in that space. Because if you're very calm and they're screaming and yelling, at some point it's uncomfortable. So knowing how to control your own tone and therefore your own emotions is going to be really helpful and allow you to slow the conversation down, to keep it, to bring you back into a point where you're not in flight or fight mode, where you're not in the reactive mode, but you can really be in your frontal cortex and be thinking rationally about the situation. Pausing is a very valuable tool as well, and one that people don't use enough. Actually, silence is very powerful, especially in the context where the other person says something incredibly hurtful or mean. Not responding is often the best answer. If you don't answer, those words are left hanging out there, and the person is kind of hearing them over and over again. It gives them an opportunity to backpedal and to apologize if they want to, but especially you're not engaging in the negative conversation. You've just let them say what they needed to say. You haven't answered them, and you're not lowering yourself to their level. And then there's times where you have to recognize that this isn't the right time to have the conversation. Either you or the other or both might be too emotional. And when you're emotional, again, your frontal cortex isn't engaged. You can't be rational. You can't be constructive in your conversation. And so recognizing that you're just not in that space right now is really important. And in a lot of cases, it means just saying, you know what, this isn't the right time. We're both too emotional. Let's postpone this conversation. There's a lot of dignity in doing that, but especially you're avoiding a disagreement escalating and turning into an open conflict. So knowing when to pull the plug is really important. Now, this doesn't mean stonewalling. It doesn't mean that you're giving them the cold shoulder and no longer communicating. What you're saying is, this conversation will not be constructive right now. Let's pick it up later on. So you're not closing that door. That's an important distinction.